What is Judaism? What are the beliefs that a person who is Jewish follows? These questions arise from much of the population of those who are unclear what Judaism actually is. A high percentage of humans are aware that Judaism is a religion, an Abrahamic religion to be exact, but not as many know that the Jews are actually a demographic race as well. Lack of exposure to the religion may be to blame for the question of whether the Jews are a race or not. In the 1980s, the Supreme Court ruled that the Jews are in fact a race. Anti-discrimination purposes allowed them to be considered a race for the struggles that their race and religion overcame in the past. They were then treated in the same race category as the Italians, African Americans, Caucasians, etc. Although the identity of the Jews could be better represented by becoming a legal race, the ruling was not supported by its followers. The desire that the Jewish religion be more profound rather than being considered a race like the rest of the population raised much distaste throughout the Jewish community. Not only were they against it, they took deep offense to it. Ideas of Jews being thought of as a race brought back many terrifying visions of the rule of the Nazi Germany in the 1930s and 1940s. At that time, the Jews were declared as a race, an inferior race at that, who were persecuted and treated horribly. Survivors of the Holocaust had the impression that they were hated because of their religious followings, which is the opposite of persecuting an entire race. A genetic distinction is vital for the distinction between races. Being said, aside from the emotional bindings, the Jews are not a race. Race refers to a shared ancestry and shared genetic traits, which cannot be manipulated based on practicing a specific religion. Although common ancestry is required to be considered a race, it is not required to be a Jew. Common ancestry is something that is shared by many Jews worldwide, but it is not required to become a Jew. Converting to Judaism is the major player in proving that shared ancestry is not necessary to being a Jew. Humans from many different cultures can and have converted to the Jewish religion. The Jewish religion is one that is commonly misunderstood by those who are uneducated on it. An adjective that is used to often describe Jews in modern society is that they are greedy. I have heard it used in different settings where Jews are the primary demographic figure. The vague question of what Jews believe is far more difficult to answer than what one may assume. Many outside the Jewish community are unaware that there is not a formal set of beliefs that are followed. A guideline to excuse the absence of a concrete set of beliefs is called Rambam's 13 Principles of Faith. These principles of faith are as follows. Number 1. Belief in the existence of the Creator. Be He blessed, who is perfect in every manner of excellence and is the primary cause of all that exists. Number 2. The belief in God's absolute and unparalleled unity. Number 3. The belief in God's non-corporeality, nor that He will be affected by any physical occurrences, such as movement or rest or dwelling. Number 4. The belief in God's eternity. Number 5. The imperative to worship Him exclusively and no foreign or false gods. Number 6. The belief that God communicates with man through prophecy. Number 7. The belief that the prophecy of Moses, our teacher, has priority. Number 8. The belief in the divine origin of the Torah. Number 9. The belief in the immutability of the Torah. Number 10. The belief in divine omniscience and providence. Number 11. The belief in divine reward and retribution. Number 12. The belief in the arrival of the Messiah and the Messianic era. And finally, number 13. The belief in the resurrection of the dead. This list is the closest to that any Jew has came to forming an accepted set of beliefs to abide by in daily life. The extent of how cautiously these principles are followed is completely determined based on the choice of the individual. It is hard to describe what is required to be a Jew because there are no definitive beliefs that someone must hold to be considered a Jew. Actions are considered much more important than beliefs in this religion to gain the same things out of life that everyone desires. The life of a Jew involves countless hours studying the Torah, the written law of God, which was revealed to Moses at Mount Sinai and are recorded in the first 5 books of the Hebrew Scripture. The Torah is a collection of the most sacred scriptures of the Jewish religion and is regarded as the most important aspect of the religion. It is derived from the Hebrew root, which after translation means to guide, teach. From a young age, Jews are instructed to learn how to read Hebrew and study the Torah completely in order to understand the teachings of God. Along with learning the 5 books of Hebrew, Jews are taught from a young age to live a respectful and fulfilling life. The most emphasis is directed towards the physical life, or reality. A so-called heaven is not clearly stated in the Torah, but there have been speculations that there is in fact an afterlife in Judaism. Doing noble deeds and respecting others is grounds for a Jew to be granted afterlife. Abolishing evil and wicked deeds is the ultimate goal in the Jewish religion, to make the world a dwelling place for God. Living a righteous life follows the words of the Torah, will provide reward for the soul. To Jews, the soul is eternal, whereas everything in this physical world is finite, justifying their belief in an afterlife. Above all, the afterlife is not a given right. You must strive to follow the Torah and live a fulfilling life. The extremely wicked will not have a chance at the afterlife. As understood in other religions, death is the moment where the afterlife begins. The future of one's existence in the afterlife is determined by the actions in their past, or their physical life. When death occurs, the souls of the wicked and the righteous are headed in two different directions. The wicked will not be granted afterlife, meaning their soul ceases to exist after their death. The possibility of any sort of life after death is eliminated for those who are wicked. A general teaching among religion is to distance yourself from material possessions and to not focus so much of your energy on being attached to the physical things in life, such as money, and the teachings that are all other materials things that are finite. Jews that need to be freed from temptations and material things from their earthly life will go through a cleansing period called Gehinnom. Gehinnom can be compared to the idea of purgatory, or a waiting place before a place in heaven is granted. If the body is attracted to physical things such as eating or drinking or other things of that matter, it will be stripped of those desires to further ready itself for Gan Eden, or the Garden of Eden. Only the very righteous will go straight to Gan Eden, while the average person will spend time in Gehenna. Views of Gehenna and its meaning vary between different individuals. It is seen as a place of severe punishment in some cases, and in others it is simply a place to look back on earthly accomplishments and critique the past physical life. Times that harm was committed and times where opportunities were missed are relived, and the idea behind Gehenna is for the person to experience remorse for their actions. Gehenna is not only focused on the negative points in life, the positive and progressive points are also relived to give the person a feeling of satisfaction and purpose. There are 4 different types of Gehenna, and they're all based on the level of righteousness for the person who is currently in a cleansing period. The Gehenna of ice is reserved for those who are very cold towards others or in their service of God, to correspond with their cold attitude. Along with ice, there is also a Gehenna of fire, which is for those who are passionate about the wrong things. The fire in Gehenna is said to be 60 times stronger than that of earth. Being in the Gehenna of fire will burn out all the temptations that the person succumbed to in their earthly life. The Gehenna of wind is another type along with the previous 2, where a soul can go to be cleansed. Nothing in heaven is physical, so all these events happening after death all deal with the spiritual soul of oneself. People with frivolous and flippant thoughts will take residence in the Gehenna of wind. For example, a soul that was made up largely of actions or thoughts that had no meaning or purpose will be placed in this wind setting. Simply stated, the whipping winds would blow these thoughts out of the soul and create a stronger bond with God and the spiritual side of the mind. Lastly, the Gehenna of water is a purgatory that is supposedly comprised of a drowning sensation. Thoughts of greed are cleansed away by the rushing waters, giving the person a feeling of satisfaction and thankfulness for what spiritual health they had, instead of straying away toward jealousy of others. All 4 of these Gehennas are meant to prepare you for your time in the Garden of Eden, known as Gan Eden. The Gehenna period does not exceed 12 months for all Jews. After the soul travels to Gehenna and is cleansed, it will now be sent to Gan Eden, a paradise. The previous cleansing period now allows the soul to live freely amongst other Jews. The object of the Garden of Eden is to have the opportunity to make the soul closer to God through Torah studying. Large groups of Torah reading are conducted, and the goal is to understand the Torah completely. A Jew's soul can now be free from all the earthly flaws for the entirety of its afterlife. Detachment from these flaws can more clearly make the world a better place for God to live, which is the overall goal of a Jew during their physical and spiritual journey. The real reward for Jews is to make the world a dwelling place for God in the physical reality by loving each other, treating others as you would want to be treated, and rejoicing for what blessings have been bestowed upon an individual. Gan Eden will last until either all the turmoil of the physical world is obsolete, or until the year 6000 of the Jewish calendar. In the present day, we are in the year 5773. After Gan Eden, a period of Jewish history called the Messianic Redemption will occur. Messianic redemption and its details is a topic that is more or less unclear among Jewish rabbis and scholars. Only after the world is perfected will this happen, meaning world peace, turmoil, or economic despair. This time is said to be the event of God returning the cleansed Jews to the land of Israel as a way to have them interact with each other peacefully. When this occurs, the Jews will not be persecuted or taken advantage of any longer by the fact that all the evil of the world will no longer exist. All people will live comfortably with the Jews. Other nations will realize that the blessings of the world came to them through the Jews, being they were the closest to God through Torah study. The Messianic redemption is a segue to the final step of the Jewish afterlife, the resurrection of the dead. The belief is that all Jews will be resurrected from the dead back into their own bodies and live on earth all over again. This is thought of as a realm beyond death, as a way to finally be able to live a pure life on earth, free from evil. Righteous souls, and only righteous souls, will now be allowed to appreciate the life they once lived, as it will strongly resemble their effort of creating a perfect world in their previous life. God will find the world perfect and a dwelling place for himself as well after the Messianic age of resurrection. The world to come, known as Olam Haba, is now the physical reality for all resurrected Jews. Olam Haba is the point in Jewish history that is said to be more pleasurable than previous life, and understandably so. Evil will no longer exist, and all racial distinctions will live in harmony with each other. The eagerness to live in this perfect world is taught to Jews as an encouragement to live a righteous life and become closer to God. All of the land of Israel will have a spot, no matter the level of righteousness shown, but those who are outside of the land will be evaluated by God to be granted another life. The process of cleansing can be repeated if the soul is not ready to enter the perfected world. Although there is speculation of how many times this can be repeated, one thing is for sure. The people who are very wicked will not be resurrected under any circumstances. The Jewish religion, from my understanding, is a race as well as a religion that is based on actions rather than solely on beliefs. Good works are praised, whereas poor decisions can result in an everlasting lockout from Gan Eden. Judaism is one of the oldest Abrahamic religions with a base of followers who have been persecuted extremely. The fact that there are still loyal Jews speaks in number on their desire to be granted a second life in a purified world.